Hi, welcome to another video. In this video, I want to give a kind of demo and update on a new component I'm working on, which is meant to be a kind of index of the SCTA corpus that allows us to explore citations and references backwards and forwards, and also enables new kinds of comparisons between different texts and parts of texts or fragments within a larger text. So I'm just going to show you around a little bit, show you how I mark quotations, and then how we can kind of filter and query the matrix in different ways based on what we want to see. So just at the beginning here, you're seeing every text compared against every other text. And so it's a very large citation frequency matrix. If we go down to the count totals at the bottom here, we can see that it's basically a citation frequency matrix of almost 17,000 marked quotations. So by all accounts, a very large index already with many more passages to mark and record. Um, Obviously, this is kind of unwieldy, but one thing you can already do is use computer analysis to cluster and group text by their sort of frequency pattern, a kind of signal. So we can simply select principal components analysis, and you can already start to see some of these texts starting to separate and cluster in different ways based on who they cite. And this will get more and more accurate and more interesting the more and more data we add to it. Um, but as we might also want to explore it at more granular levels. Instead of everything that I'm looking at, I might want to look at um, Lombard's sentences against Augustine's De Trinitate. So let's just do that. Okay, and so this is a nice example of how we can drill down into what we care about and see it at a more granular level. Here on the x-axis, we have um, the 4 books that make up Peter Lombard's sentences, and on the y-axis, and on the x-axis on the top, we have each book of Augustine's De Trinitate, and we can see a little bit how the different books use Augustine's De Trinitate because they're dealing with different topics. And again, we can start to see the clustering being more informative and more useful. Um, the De Trinitate really dominates book 1, and we can see that separation here. And so that's pretty nice. It also brings a lot of transparency. So let's say I'm interested in these 14 quotations here. I can click on these, drill down into them. So where in Augustine's book 1 is being quoted, where in Lombard's book 1 are these things being quoted, and now I can see that at an even finer level of granularity. And I can explore the citations themselves without having to move away. So click citations. We should see here in a second the actual quotations, right, from Lombard's text. And we can compare them to the source paragraph that is being quoted, like so, right? So a lot of transparency there to see where are these numbers coming from. Well, we can take a look at that right away. We can also compare the way that Augustine's being cited here with these historical reference, like so. And so there's a lot of different things you might be interested in. So let's take a look at how these quotations get marked and how we can use computer-assisted tools to facilitate that marking. And then we'll come back and look at one more perspective. So I've been focusing on Augustine's De Trinitate to create an exhaustive example. And so I'm going to come over here and come to Augustine's De Trin. And I left off in book 5. Right, so we've got another perspective on the citations. Here I am on the Augustine text, and every time a text is citing Augustine, it gets linked at a very fine level of granularity. And the viewer here gives us a kind of heat map of how Augustine's text is used and cited, which parts are used heavily, which aren't used at all, and so on. All right, so we can sort of see where I left off because we start to see less and less citation because I haven't finished that. So let's take a look at this paragraph here, and we're going to look at the text compare tool. And one thing that we have on the top is marked confirmed citations, but what we have below is a set of suggested or possible quoting fragments based on repeated n-gram matches. So we have three texts here that are suggested by the computer to be citing this paragraph, and we can, without moving away, view those texts. And we can hover over that and see where that's being, where that suggestion is, right? And this is a pretty interesting case because well, we see the Augustine citation here, but it's somewhat hard to find. But we can pretty clearly see that Gregory Rimini here is quoting Augustine all the way from in multis down to potet. So we can highlight that text region, and that has a unique ID which we can copy to the clipboard, right? And then without navigating away, we can come in here and say, oh, we want to edit this quote. So I'm going to click edit. Right? And we're taken directly to the source text. In fact, we're taken to the page where the quotation happens, and we can add the quote like so. And we thought that it ended here at non potuit. So the quotation now has been marked, and we're going to add the link, the machine actionable link, source like that. We're going to give that quote a unique ID. We can actually see that the quotation's a little bit broken up here, so we might want to be more specific. The other cool thing is that this is obviously machine transcription is not perfect, and as we mark quotations, we can improve the quality of the corpus overall. So, for example, referunter here should be linked. We have a few of these cases, so we'll fix a few of them. We can do more later. And each time we fix these, there's going to improve the chances of good matching. All right, and if we look closer here, we can see that the first part of this quote is not all the way to from the beginning to the top, but stops at referuntur. So here to here. And so we're going to adjust that and change the source here. So we see we have more precision here. And then below, you can say, you can use our hover over feature as well. The second part starts at the bottom here. So he's jumping, grab this, and now we see the rest of the quote goes from here to here. All right, so much more accurate, fine-grained and granular source. Okay. And we're going to manually create some unique IDs so we can single these quotations out. In other workflows, we have a mechanism for auto-generating these, but for the moment, I'm just doing by hand. These are random IDs. They just have to be unique file. All right, and now we'll submit a pull request, commit those changes, source update. Right, and now that quotation has been marked. So that's a basic idea. We use the AI and statistical informed analytical tools to give us suggestions, and then we do more editorial work to confirm those suggestions, right? So I won't do all of them, but that's the basic idea. And each time we make that quotation, we're basically kind of recording the knowledge that we've acquired. The computers helped us suggest here's something we know, we've confirmed that, and then we can use that again in our indices. So we'll come back one more to our indices and just say, what else can we do with this? Obviously, we can take us to the quotes we've marked, but there's some aggregation functions that are really kind of interesting. Peter Lombard's sentences is interesting in and of itself, but it's also interesting because it's the subject of a commentary tradition that lasts several centuries. And one thing we might be interested in is because each distinction within his commentary deals with a particular topic in the way that an encyclopedia article would deal with a particular topic. We might want to see what kinds of authorities dominate in a given topic. So in this case, I'm going to ask for all the citation patterns in Augustine's De Trinitate, broken down by book, and for each distinction, but not just each distinction of Peter Lombard's sentences, but the sum total of citations in all commentaries on each distinction. So let's run this and see what happens. All right, so what we see here is again Augustine broken down by book across the top, but what we see on the left is distinction one, distinction two, distinction three, distinction four. Distinction one's about happiness, distinction two is about God, well, and different ways about God. Distinction three is about God as an image of the Trinity. Distinction eight is about his simplicity, and so on. So depending on the topic you're interested, we could ask what parts of Augustine's De Trinitate seem to dominate for that. And we can see that like certain passages in book one are very important for this. Certain passages in 9 and 10 are very important. But we can also see some books where no commentary on distinction one has found anything that's that useful. And also interesting to me is where we can see use that's exceptional or unique, right? So the use of a citation from book 5 or book 7 is interesting because lots of people have written commentaries on distinction one, but really only one person in their commentary on distinction one has found a passage in Augustine's book 5 or 7 that they thought was relevant. So that becomes a place for further investigation. And what I'm going to do in this case is now focus my attention on distinction one, but break them apart, disaggregate them so that I can see everybody's commentary on distinction one and see who was the person that decided to quote from this unusual passage. Right, so now I have all the distinction ones broken down into separate rows, and I can see pretty clearly, look, Gerard of Siena has found something from distinction 5 that he thought was relevant to the discussion of happiness that no one else did. And then some passages from Scotus, where he cited Augustine's book 7 when no one else did. So these are places of curiosity, of interest, and where when we order them chronologically, we could also see ways in which they might create trends or influence in tradition. So I'm just speculating here, but you might see, for example, a case where someone here quotes book passages from book 2, and suddenly you see people who come after him quoting passages from book 9. Sorry, two quotes from book 9, and then someone after Wotam like Rimini quoting perhaps those passages and another, and then 2 more people also coming after Wotam who quote. So no one before quoting passages from book 9 in the discussion of happiness, then suddenly someone quoting on those passages, and then a trend started. So that's kind of interesting. So we're going to keep creating citations, and over time, it's going to get more and more useful, more and more rich, and we'll be able to do more and more with it. So that's the idea. Thanks for watching, and if you have any comments or questions, put them in the comments below, and I'll try to answer, or email me, and I'd be happy to respond. Thanks for watching.